There you go.
Welcome to OSNHA's March Education Session. I'm Laurel Smith, an OSNHA board member and chair of the Education Committee. Thank you for joining us today. A couple of announcements, just a reminder about our August 25th conference. Within the next 30 days, you will receive information about how to register and to attend our annual event. We encourage you all to register quickly because we are expecting a much larger turnout this year. During this session, you will all be muted to avoid noise disruptions. We will have Q&A session at the end of the main presentation. However, Tim has also mentioned that he will be stopping during his presentation to answer certain questions at the end of segments, so we don't confuse people anymore with different technologies. So you can also put them in the chat for the Zoom chat function, or you can hold them all the way to the end. We are recording this session and it will be posted on our website for future reference. Our featured speaker today is Tim Rowan of Rowan Consulting Associates. Tim is a nationally known home healthcare consultant and the publisher of the Rowan Report. He has been in home healthcare since 1993, starting as IT director for a large Colorado agency, and has been helping home care agencies make informed technology selection decisions on how to increase their hiring and retention strategies since 2015. Today, Tim will be sharing with us the technology solutions to your caregiver shortage challenges. Tim, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Laurel. I'll
You're
start
welcome.
sharing my screen. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I have a specific message today in several parts. So I'm going to walk you through what I have been learning over the years about the right and wrong way. Let me put this back where it belongs. Oh, let me wait until I'm doing it right. There we go. Technology sometimes gets ahead of the best of us. So, yes, thank you for joining us. And my topic today is your staff hiring and retention challenges, which I have been hearing from you and people like you across the country for at least 10 years, if not longer. And of course, as everyone knows, it has gotten worse in the last couple of years.
Recording in progress.
A number of ways. There are a number of ways to solve, increase your hiring and increase your retention. And I'm not going to go into every kind of advice that you might get from anybody and everybody, but I'm going to focus on some things that I have learned over the last 2 or 3 years about specifically about technology tools that you probably have not heard of. And that's, I think, what the most important thing is that I have to offer is that I spend my days exploring new technologies. People call me all the time to ask me to write about their companies. And so I might have the opportunity to have a finger on the pulse of the technology side of home care more than you do in your busy lives, just trying to run the business and serve the patients and clients. So I've got my email address here, and it'll be again on the final screen. I would like to ask you, while you're listening today, if you could have a notepad next to you. I'm going to be asking you some questions that I want you to write down. If you don't know the answers off the top of your head, it'll at least be a guide to tell you what to look up after we are finished, because the information that I'm going to ask you to know about your own agency is going to be important to be able to use the tools that I will be telling you about. So let's first talk about how home care is not unique. Everybody, restaurants, construction, everywhere you turn, for one reason or the other, since the pandemic, people are not applying for jobs as much as they used to. The workforce is disappearing. So I would like to ask you the question, should technology be one of your solutions? And my answer is yes. And this entire presentation is going to be telling you why I firmly believe that my answer is yes. So let's start with things you already know. I'm going to go through some things that I have learned from the PHI Institute. The PHI Institute, I'm giving you the URL at the bottom there because they put out annual reports that are absolutely critical to understand the state of the caregiving workforce. They specifically focus on non-medical, personal, direct care workers. A tremendous amount of information that they put in their report every year, and I've based some of these things on this year's report. So one of the things that you already know is that there are a lot of you, there are 4.7 million direct care workers today, but only about half of those are in home care. So of course, one of the reasons that you're having a tough time hiring people is that they are working in nursing homes and they're working off the books directly for your clients and in other healthcare locations. So 2.6 million are in home care today, but that's probably not going to be enough. I know that 2060 is a long ways away, but the predictions from PHI are that those of us over 65 are going to double to 94.7 million by 2060. The population over 85 is going to triple. And there's going to be no predicted increase in the number of available workers. That age group 18 to 64 is going to be about the same numbers as they are today, 37 years from now. And that's not going to happen overnight. And from 2059 to 2060, it's going to gradually move to that direction. So that's one of the things that you are probably experiencing every day. Nationally, PHI believes that home care is going to need 1.1 million more workers. But in order to replace those retiring and leaving the profession, you're going to have to hire almost 8 million to wind up with 1.1 million, because the ones that you have today are going to be leaving little by little. So hiring properly and hiring effectively is going to be one of the focuses that I'm going to offer you today. So let's first ask the question. If you got to hire 8 to get 1, why? Why are they leaving you? And I'll bet you know this better than I do. Why is there a 64% turnover rate in your businesses? And why is that turnover rate 50% in the first 12 months? Well, the PHI Institute asked direct care workers, and their answers included, of course, low wages, not enough benefits, little opportunities for career advancement, and the rural people have it even worse than the ones in cities because of the long travel times. They complain about that. And then quality of life. Those things are on the list of answers that the direct care workers themselves gave for why they leave. Or maybe it's because you told them that home care was going to look like this. And when they got out there, they found out it looks more like this, or even like this. So I'm going to ask you to look in the mirror for a moment. Is it them, or is it you? This is a serious question. Is there something wrong with the people that you're hiring, or is there something wrong with the way you are managing them? I don't want you to look in the mirror and see a lion or a super executive. I want you to look honestly in the mirror and ask, what are you doing that causes you, and you know this as well as I do, to hire 10 people in order to wind up with one good one? One of the technologies I'm going to be sharing with you today is a technique that's going to help you to get that number down to 3 or 4 instead of hiring 10 to get one good one, because hiring is not just an agony, it's expensive. And this is where the notepad comes in. I want to ask you if you know these numbers. What is your per person cost of hire? What does it cost you to bring on one person? And these are the things that I think go into that formula. You advertise, right? You put your name on the sides of buses. You use Indeed, perhaps, and there's a fee there. Think of all the things that go into your cost of recruiting and write that down. What about processing the application? That probably means somebody who's supporting your website. You have to create the online application. You have to have somebody to read the applications, filter them, and decide who to call. You have to have somebody to make the calls and invite people for the interviews. So add up all what you think the total cost of that is, whether you use a month or a year, whatever is easier, just so that you factor in that number. And then you must have somebody who's doing the interviewing, whether it's you or somebody else. The portion of that salary that goes toward the interview has to be counted toward your cost of hiring. What do you pay per background check? I don't know how to put that number into the formula because it's different depending on what service you use, what state you're in. I have no idea what the available services are in Arizona. So you know that number, put that in. And then you have to train the people. You have to train them about your company culture. You have to train them how to use your software, state regulations, whatever it is they're subject to. How often do you hold those classes? What does it cost to run a class? Do you train one person at a time? Do you wait and train 5 or 10 at a time? How many classes do you have in a week? Come up with that cost of hire. You need to know these totals in order to understand what I'm going to be sharing with you in a few minutes about how much waste goes into bad hiring. Yes, I'm going to try to shame you into better behavior. Better term than bad hiring would be desperation hiring. Why are you involved with hiring anybody who can blow up a balloon? Why do you stoop to? Why do you resort to anybody is okay as long as they show up? Well, it's probably because you've got a new client that wants somebody to start on Monday. You don't have anybody to fill that shift, right? And so you grab whoever you can, because the alternative is turning that new client away or offering them to a competitor. So desperation hiring is what causes you to get into that habit of hiring, 10 or more to get one good one. The other thing then, when you offer a job, keep in mind that people have applied for a lot of jobs. You know how Indeed works, right? You fill out an application one time and then you just sit there, click, 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 and apply for 20, 30 jobs an hour. When you call that person off of the Indeed application, they say, now, who are you again? What kind of work do you do? So you're competing with other people who are desperate to hire in your neighborhood. Fast food, Amazon, and grocery stores, of course, are the top 3, but I'm sure you know of a lot more who are telling you, well, I could go over there and get more per hour. So desperation hiring is also caused by competition. But if you get involved with hiring anybody who can blow up a balloon, what does that cost? The cost is you have to reduce your standards. The cost is you hire a lot of people you shouldn't, and they leave. And if they leave before they've worked enough shifts to cover the cost of hire, then it's a guaranteed loss. The cost of hire is gone unrecouped, and you would have been better off not hiring them, right? If they cost you more than they make you money. So have you calculated your own personal bad hire losses? Do you know what it costs to hire somebody who doesn't hang around? If you haven't, I'm going to invite you to do it now. And what I'm going to show you is a tool that I developed that I will give to you if you send me your email address. It's kind of a simple spreadsheet, but I spent a lot of time putting it together. When you get it, all you have to do is fill in the tan areas. Okay, those numbers I just had you write down. Okay, fill in a number in the cost of advertising box, and fill in a number in the cost of your online application system. How much do you pay your recruiter per month? How much do you pay your interviewer per month? What does a background check cost you? I'm just throwing numbers in here, of course. I like fives. What does it cost you to put on a class on a Saturday for 4 or 5 people? And then how many applicants do you process in a month? 1, 10, 25, 50? How often do you put on a class? Every Saturday, every other Saturday? And what the tool will give you is your cost per hire. And once you have that number, you come down below and you put in how much do you make per shift, net profit. So you got to consider your overhead, what you're paying the person, and then it'll tell you how many hours and days that person, how many shifts that person has to work before they have covered the cost of hiring them. So that's a real quick overview, but I think you can see how it works. These calculated fields down here will tell you how many days you have to work until they have recouped the cost of hire. And like I said, I will send you that spreadsheet. You don't have to rebuild it yourself if you don't want to. That's how you calculate the cost of bad hiring. So to solve that problem, you got to get some help. So who are you going to call? I'm going to suggest a half a dozen or so people that you can call. But before I do that, I want you to beware of the usual suspects with their usual advice. You're going to hear a lot of people telling you how to retain staff after you've hired them. Be nice to them. That's not enough. There are so many better ways. They're going to tell you, pat them on the back, respect them, communicate with them, instill a caring culture within your organization. Make your new hires and your longtime people feel appreciated. Those are all good things, but they often come with strings attached, because the people who give you those advice will say, oh, and if you buy our software, you'll retain people even longer because they love using it so much. So beware of the usual suspects with the usual advice. Parties are nice for corporate culture and morale, but you can't throw a party every day, right? Bonuses are nice, but Fry's and McDonald's and Amazon can always outbid you if you're relying on money alone. Trophies are nice, but when it comes right down to it, the key thing that I have learned over the last 30 years is that retention begins at recruiting. Retention begins before hiring, not with pats on the back. What do I mean by that? You need to get enough people, but you need to get the right people. You need to keep the people you have, and you need to figure out a way to deliver excellent care the way you have been with fewer people, because some of the times just people are just not available. So recruiting and retention, staffing, the worker shortage, the solution comes down to 3 goals. More people, keep people, and get by with fewer people. And some of the technologies I'm going to show you are oriented toward one or the other of these goals. So let me tell you about a company that I know of in Florida. This may be your experience, and if it is, I'd like you to talk to me about it in the chat box. This agency hires 2 full-time recruiters. They employ 110 direct care workers, And they pay for Indeed and Zip and Monster and all of the online services. And this is their result. For every 200 applications that come through the website, they wind up attracting 100 people to do an interview. You know how that is, right? Why do they tell you they want a job and then not show up for the interview even after they schedule it, right? Out of the 100 interviews, they offer 50 people a job. Out of those jobs that they have offered, their experiences, 25 people show up for orientation. Out of those 25, 18 work at least the first shift. That comes down to a 9% success ratio, which I call the failure funnel. After 30 days, they have 8 of those 200 people. 8 of those 200 people, because they're desperation hiring. Now, you might think, well, what choice do I have? If I don't take 200 applications and interview 50 people, I'm not going to get those 8. You have to go through the failure funnel. No, that's the old way of thinking, because you can't afford it anymore. You cannot continue to throw money down that tube of bad hiring. For example, what are your costs? I need you to write this down too. What does it cost to hire a person? If you came up with a number of $2,000 for one person, which I have heard often is a reasonable number. If you're the Florida agency, they are throwing away $84,000 a month. But I've heard a lot of other people tell me it can cost $4,000 to $4,500 per hire. And if that's the case, that Florida agency is throwing away $168,000. You can't afford to do that anymore. But how do you know? How do you know when you read the application? How do you know it during the interview to identify those 8 and avoid the 42? That requires ESP. It requires seeing the future, doesn't it? Well, it used to. And so one of the technologies that I've found that I'm sure you haven't heard of is actually brand new and patented. And the patent is the home care application of, actually there are 5 patents, the application within home care of cognitive natural language processing. It's going to take a little unpacking, so bear with me. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. The company has named itself Millimatch, and it claims that it can save you thousands of dollars by identifying the bad hires before you spend too much money on them. This slide is going to take a little explanation, but give me a minute and you'll see what you get. This is a report that comes from the Millimatch software on one applicant. And if you look at the blue lines, you'll see that this person scored a weighted average of 88. They scored a 42 on the scale of dependability, a 94 on social intelligence. There's a score for relationship oriented, but look at these two: compassion, 88, and caring, 67. And I'm sorry that the last one got cut off. It says flexibility, and it's at a 32. So you can look at this score, and it will help you to guide you whether you want to bother with the interview or not. If somebody scores, for example, very low on compassion and caring, you might know, well, this person's not going to work out. It'll give you a clue. But how does it do that? Cognitive NLP asks an applicant 5 questions and requires that they answer in words, not checkboxes, with at least 2 sentences. And it doesn't matter how many more, but with at least 2 sentences. And you can see the questions here. If this screen is too small, the questions on this particular application are, Why are you a caregiver or want to become one? Tell us of a time when you were there for somebody who really needed you. Think of the best conversation you've ever had with a stranger. What about this person made an impact on you? If time were no object, what work, hobby, or other pursuit would you spend your time doing and why? How can we help create a supportive and positive work experience for you? Somehow, because of the algorithm behind the cognitive NLP analysis, this set of questions, given 2 sentences each, can give you this result. What happens to people who have used this before? And there are some. It's been in home care for over a year now. The early adopters have told me that they wind up interviewing and offering jobs to fewer people. And you might say, oh, that's not a good idea. But they end up with the same number of caregivers after 30 days that they used to before they started using this. They have slashed that $2,000 to $4,000 cost per bad hire. And they have noticed that their retention has improved by 25%. Now, in this case, remember, retention does not result from reducing the denominator, does result from reducing the denominator, not increasing the numerator. In other words, you have fewer people who don't show up after orientation for the first shift, or who don't show up after the first shift. You eliminate those people, and so the ones that are left are the better hires. That make sense? Keep in mind, though, that the Millimatch assessments are not dictating you on who to hire, but it certainly does inform the judgment of the person doing the interviewing and hiring. What happens if you use it? You put money in your pocket, which makes it possible, maybe, to pay the people that you have a few cents more per hour. I was about to say a few dollars, but you know that would be absurd. So look at what happens. Remember, we kind of guessed, and you use your own number here, the cost of one bad hire is somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. So let's say you used a Millimatch and you eliminated one bad hire a month. Now you're saving $24,000 to $48,000 a year. What if you eliminated 3 a month bad hires? Now the numbers really start to add up. Compared to what it costs you to use Millimatch, it not just pays for itself, it puts money in your pocket. I thought when I first heard this story that Millimatch would cost 10 times as much as it does, but this is the way the company has set it up, which is one of the reasons that I'm so appreciative of the work that they're doing in home care. So how do you put Millimatch into your operation? You probably have an online application. You add a URL at the bottom, and they go to the questionnaire. I recently learned also, though, that one of the optional features, services that Millimatch has is almost a complete application. You could use theirs instead of yours, in other words, but you can go either way. You don't have to use theirs, and it includes quite a few applicant tracking services to remind them of the appointments and the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. So worth talking to them. And I was supposed to put the URL on here. So let me just tell you that it's millimatch.com. Real easy if you want to get a hold of them, or you can contact me and I will introduce you. I'm going to go on to a different category right now. So this is the point where I think it might be good to see if there are questions in the chat box. And if you would like to ask them now, or if you would like to hold off and ask them verbally toward the end. I am flexible. So Laurel, what do you think? Do we have questions to deal with?
I don't
Yet,
see any in the chat box at this point, Tim.
Okay. I will take a sip of water and keep going then.
Okay.
Like I told you, I was going to be showing you a lot of different companies, and I'm not trying to sell you on them. I just want to let you know that these kinds of services are available. They have been proven to help you with recruiting and retention, and you, at least by the time we're done, should be able to find one or two that you would want to contact. So now that you have been hiring better and you have a higher percentage of people who are likely to stay around for a while, what else can you do to keep them happy? These two technologies I'm going to tell you about are in the category of recognizing their accomplishments and rewarding them. There's a company right in Phoenix that has been created by somebody you probably know, a software product that coordinates with your payroll system to calculate the bonuses you might want to offer to your caregivers who invite friends to come and work for you. And when Bob started using this right after he created it, before he decided, hey, we should sell this to other people, he found that the experience of his longtime people inviting their friends to come and work wound up with better retention, better employees than the ones that came through Indeed or other ads. So let me give you an example how Retinent works. Let's say you want to boost somebody 25 cents an hour. If they bring a friend in who takes a job and stays for 90 days. Then let's say if that new friend invites another friend, you want to give that person 25 cents an hour, and the first person maybe another 10. I'm making up these numbers, but you know how it works. It's like Amway, right? Well, that would be hard to keep track of, especially if you had to put those numbers into your payroll software. That's what Retinent does. Calculates it all for you, makes it easy. So you can contact them if you have in mind the idea of encouraging your people to do the recruiting for you. And as our friend Bob Roth has told me, it works, and it works better than Indeed and Monster and ZipRecruit, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one company worth looking at. The product is called Retinent. Another way of recognizing achievements is another new company, and you probably know these people too. Some of you probably at one point used agency management system called Soneto. Joe and Linda Krause, before they sold to Matrix Care. And since then, they have gone on to a new venture and created I am going to pause for a moment because there's a blank slide here, and there is also a mistake. Just give me a minute. I know this is going to mess up the recording, but it'll be worth it. So let me talk to you about Perks for Care. And as soon as I find the slide, I'll fix what I did there. I've got the same URL in both places, so I apologize. This should say Perks for Care. I can type. There, I sincerely apologize. Maybe can even edit that out if you guys are really, really good editors. Okay, I am gonna take one more second to make sure that I do this right and start the slideshow from where we left off. Okay, sorry about that. So Retinent and Perks for Care. So what Joe and Linda Krause have put together is a method of identifying whatever you want to call an award or an accomplishment or an achievement or going above and beyond and you use their software to give them points, to give them badges. And what they do with those is store them up, and they can trade them for gift cards for restaurants, gasoline, gift cards of any kind. And Perks for Care coordinates all of that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So that might be one worth looking at too, because recognition, the feeling of importance, and letting people know they are appreciated. The things that all the usual suspects I told you about at the beginning were or have been telling you for a long time, those things actually work. But sometimes in your busy schedule, it's difficult to manage and coordinate a program like that. So with Perks for Care, you don't have to hire somebody to do that. You can give people rewards. They can use those rewards for cash or gift cards. The next category is different. So if there's any questions, we can take a look at them now. I know one of your questions is going to be, why didn't you proofread this PowerPoint? I apologize. Sometimes things like that happen, but the information is still good. So let's move on to how to keep people happy when you know one thing about them. What is what most of your direct care workers have in common? In general, nationwide, they are single women, women of color, driving a 1999 minivan. I know that's a generalization and a stereotype, but the PHI study bears that out, as well as the company you also know of, My CNA Jobs. The studies that they have done also will tell you that far and away, women of color, often single mothers with a very old car, are your typical caregivers. And of course, there are exceptions. There are a lot of men who want to do the work. There are a lot of married women who want to do the work. Of course, there are exceptions. But one of the things that minimum wage or barely over minimum wage people have in common is sometimes they can't pay the rent and have to wait till payday. Sometimes the electric bill is due and there's a late fee before payday. What these two companies do for you, and some of you might be familiar with them, is they allow your employees to get an advance on their next paycheck for any hours they have already worked. This is not a loan. It's not a loan. It is a pay for work that has been completed without you having to go to the trouble of actually having payday every day. And it doesn't cost the employer anything. So the applicant gets your employee gets an app on their cell phone, and they use it like an ATM machine. They look at their account, daily pay or tap check account, and it says you've worked 50 hours, you're eligible to download X number of dollars, and they download it. Of course, it's attached to your direct deposit payment system. Then you have to have a direct deposit system for this to work. They get that money immediately for a fee similar to an ATM fee, $2 to $3. Daily pay and tap check tell me that people tend to use it about once a week. And the $2 or $3 is instead of whatever the late fee is for their rent, their utilities, their car payment, whatever that might be, that's $35, $45, $50 and up. They can make their rent payment on time. They don't have to pay the late fee, and it costs them a couple of bucks. So people love this. And this is what happens. Word that you offer this service spreads throughout the community, and you know that people talk to each other. And so you get in the feedback loop. Well, they will tell their friends, hey, you should come work where I work. And then you go back to Renton and Perks for Care and reward your people for bringing people in. The word will get around that you have a wonderful place to work because of this kind of technology that you make available to your people. Does that make sense to you? I can see you nodding. Go ahead. Lauren, at this point, anything that comes up in the chat for questions, you can go ahead and let me know. I can,
There
from this
was,
point on, I can stop almost anywhere.
Tim, there was a comment when you were doing, I think the screen before this. This is a great idea. We just implemented this perk with another company, but the same concept that was submitted by one of our viewers.
You know, every time I do this presentation, I hear about more companies to add to the slides. And so I appreciate that. And I'd like to know their name because there are a number of companies doing this kind of thing. And I want to get to meet all of them. All right, thank you. Whoever asked or offered that input.
Okay, I'll ask her to put that in the chat then, please. I think you heard Tim's request. Thank you.
So just to review, you don't pay anything for daily pay or tap check. The employee uses the app. It is not a loan. They have to have worked the hours to get the money downloaded. Costs them a couple of bucks, and it's cheaper than the late fees they might pay for paying their bills late. Okay. The next category is called workforce automation. You know, probably more than I do, that some of your caregivers, in fact, most of them, I've asked people this question: how many of your direct care workers work for other agencies too? And the answer is always all of them. And so you're not in just competition to hire somebody, you're in competition to get them to take a shift even after you've hired them. So why should they work for you instead of somebody else? A couple of the technologies that I've found that can help you with that are technologies that help you to learn and work around their shift preferences. Okay, you've got workers with kids in school. You've got parent-teacher conferences. You've got grandmothers who occasionally have to babysit grandchildren. Whatever the individual case might be, you got doctor's appointments. There's software that can help you to learn and work your schedule around theirs, which makes your offers of a shift a lot more attractive, these people, than maybe your competitors offer. And if they're working for both of you, you can draw them in. Training opportunities is another perk. People who, in the PHI research, who leave the business, leave the work of caregiving, often say that there's no opportunity for career advancement. Not everybody wants to be a minimum wage in-home caregiver for their entire lives. Maybe they want to work into an office job, a supervisory job. Maybe they want to go to nursing school, whatever the case might be. If working for you means career advancement opportunities, then they're going to be much more likely to come and work for you and stay and work for you. So who does this? In workforce automation, you're looking at their individual family needs. You accommodate their schedule, that should say preferences, sorry, their communication system to quickly fill open shifts. The communication system is really special because you know how often you get people calling you at the last minute saying, I can't make it for whatever reason, sick kid, flat tire, broken down car. This software from Care Connect Mobile allows you to quickly find someone else by broadcasting the shift availability throughout all of your caregivers. Or if you're really desperate to fill it quickly, you broadcast it to all of those who are within 5 miles or whatever your priority is of that visit, of that shift. Lots and lots of online instruction companies out there. I happen to like Nevin and Care Academy. I used to include Relias on this list. Some of you probably use it. It has seemed to me in recent years they have turned more toward hospital nursing training than home care, direct care workers, but they're still good if you like Relias. But these two are are have set themselves apart because they will train people to do the job you've hired them for. A lot of basic direct care worker instruction. They also have certifications that they can offer that sometimes are their own certifications that are worth the paper they're printed on. Sometimes they're affiliated with a state. They're both out of the East Coast, so you'd have to talk to them about certifications for Arizona requirements. But people who take their courses then can see that maybe they don't just want to be trained for the job they're doing now. Maybe they want to improve themselves, move on, move into higher and higher jobs. The better training organizations don't limit themselves to English. And the best ones don't just have words on the screen like I do. They turn the instruction into a game. This accomplishes two things. One is it's much more entertaining. It's been proven to result in retention of the learning. And two, they have to constantly interact. So it avoids the problem of somebody turning on a video and walking away, and you think that they have completed the lesson. So whether you contact the folks at Nevin or careacademy.com, look for, or somebody else, look for these features. Teach them about the current job, their future jobs, give them a certificate, accommodate their languages, and make the learning fun and entertaining. So I kind of put these in the same category because they have to do with the on-the-job experience. And you know as well as I do, when you're talking about retention, people leave because they just don't like their job anymore. Sometimes it's because they don't like you, but there's not a lot you can do about that. If they just are not interested in the job anymore, they don't see a future, or they see that all you care about is the shift and the client. This brings me to kind of an important point. There's been a lot of research that I've shown that asks you to kind of change your thinking about one thing. Everybody says we're the best agency in town because we are patient, client, family oriented. Patients, clients come first. It turns out that's not quite accurate. Your caregiver comes first. If the caregiver doesn't come first, the patient can't come first, if that makes sense to you. So accommodate, make the job exciting and interesting and attractive to your best people, then your patient family will have the best experience. That might be a little controversial, a different statement, but I'm hearing it more and more and more lately. I am not going to teach you about telehealth. You've been hearing about it for years, but I can't go on without at least mentioning it. Remember I told you they have 3 goals? That third one is to do more with less. If you can't hire enough people, you still need to take care of people. And one way to do it is to keep an eye on them in between shifts or visits. But some people think that telehealth is one thing. It's really 3 or more. Everybody knows about the blood pressure cuffs in the home that communicate through the Wi-Fi or the cell phone and keep you informed on every day how the patient is doing. I don't need to teach you about that. That category has been called home telehealth. It's been called remote patient monitoring. People throw the same terms around to mean different things. Something that I have seen growing, more and more and more technology companies call me and say, hey, we thought of this great new thing that you should write about. It's not a great new thing. It's a great thing, but it's not new anymore because there are so many of them doing it. Whether it's a tablet that you leave in the client's home, or a cell phone app that you give to the adult daughter or the rest of the family, there is more and more HIPAA secure communication available through these new apps that I've been finding than ever before. And they're quite useful. One of the main reasons they're useful is the frequency with which some of your people will call 911 without calling you. If they have this app, if they have this tablet in their home and all they have to do is tap the screen to get a hold of you if they're having a problem, or maybe they don't get a hold of you, maybe they tap the screen and get a hold of their adult daughter far away, and then that daughter can call you. If you have a conversation going on that requires some additional input, you can add to a person to the conversation. Maybe it'll be a nurse, maybe it's the personal care physician, maybe it'll be some other type of supervisor that you bring in. And when you bring them in, with most of these applications, they can see the entire history of the conversation and be brought up to speed. The other category that people ignore a lot is putting motion detectors and video cameras into the home. Pros and cons for that, of course, and there are a lot of companies that you can look at. I don't have specific company recommendations in this category because the category has been around for so long, and I did want to spend most of my time focusing on what's new and unfamiliar. So you know who the players are in this category. My point was to point out it's not just one thing. There are three totally different subcategories within remote patient monitoring. If you would like some names and some recommendations for who to talk to in one or more of these categories, I welcome you to contact me and we can go into details, because general recommendations don't usually work because each company's specific needs are unique, and I like to cater my recommendations to exactly what you are looking for. That's why you don't see any URLs on this page. All right, after remote patient monitoring, it is time to summarize and bring it all together. Now that you have done all of these wonderful things, you've vetted your applicants and you're hiring fewer to keep the same number. You've engaged your staff in inviting their friends to work for you. And you've set up payday advances. And you've created, I didn't mean to, my finger twitched. Sorry. You have created perks that they can transform into gift cards. You offer training for career advancement, and you've become the favorite place to work because you are accommodating their schedules. Now that you have done all of these things, you've got to brag about it. You have to let the world know. People are not going to accidentally find you. Let the world know how wonderful a home care agency you are running. And it used to be the yellow pages, it used to be word of mouth, but today it's Google. All right? You have to have a stellar online reputation because everybody looks there first. That adult daughter that I mentioned, she didn't live in Phoenix or Tucson. She lives in Chicago or Houston. And when she's looking for a place for mom, she's going to go to Google. Google still has 92% of the market of online searches. And what we have learned is that online reputation not only attracts new clients into your business, it attracts new workers. When they are looking, if you've got somebody who says, I want to be a direct care worker, I want to work for an in-home care agency, they're going to go online and read your reviews. They're going to go online and look for the best agency in town. And how does that work? Let me give you a couple more minutes before we close to show you the things you need to do to toot your own horn online. First of all, Google is far more effective than Indeed. That's kind of a given because not everybody uses Indeed, everybody uses Google. Secondly, it's free. If you know how to do it, you don't need a consultant. You don't need to call me and have me teach you how to do it. You can if you don't know how to do it, but that's beside the point. You can do it yourself if you don't want to bring in somebody to teach you how to do it. It's free to brag about your stellar reputation online. First, establish a foundation. Actually, you have two reputations, the one that the adult daughter looks at and the one that your future caregiver looks at. We'll talk about how to do both. Like I said, you can use all the search engines you want to post your business, but you have to go beyond just your website. 92% of all online searches still today, Google owns that market. So your online reputation is your Google reputation. And a large percentage of Google's assessment of your online reputation comes from the reviews that your existing clients post about you, your existing employees post about you. So how do you find out what your online reputation is? If you don't already know this, it's very simple. Go to Google, type in home care and the name of your town. Google will give you 3 results. You want to be in those top 3. See the red arrow where it says more places? There'll be 20 or 30 others, but nobody clicks on that more places button. Everybody picks up the phone and calls the first 3. How do you get there? Google looks at how many reviews you have on your Google business page, how recent those reviews are, and how positive they are. And that goes into the 8% to determine whether you are going to be in the top 3 or not. We call it the map pack. Now, keep in mind, there are going to be a couple of names higher than the top 3. People have paid for those ads. Don't do it. Nobody clicks on the ads. Everybody looks at the reviews. It's expensive to advertise on Google. It's not as effective today as it used to be. And people will come down to the bottom and click one of those 3. And if you can see it clearly, they can either click on your name or on your website or on directions to your place. People use the directions button for restaurants, but for you, they're going to click on your name. What are they going to find? They're going to find your Google business page. So you need to be strategic and do some sneaky things to get yourself into those top 3. Just a quick word, I've been using the term Google business page. You'll be saying, I didn't set up a Google business page. Nobody does. Google sets it up. When they find you, they create a Google business page. And if you haven't gone there and claimed it and edited it, put them in pictures and your hours and your phone number, it's going to say, is this your business? Would you like to claim this business? And it looks abandoned and unimportant. And there might even be reviews there. Even if you haven't claimed the page, people can post reviews. And if they're negative reviews and you don't even know the page is there and you don't respond to them, you get further and further lower on the Google search. Okay, trick number 1, you can print business card sized cards with a QR code on them to hand out. People scan the QR code, it'll go directly to your reviews page. That's one trick. Another trick is put a button on the front page of your website that takes people directly to your reviews page. It's easy to do. Your web manager can probably show you how to do it. This is what it looks like, this larger blow up of it. Another trick you can use is every email, put in your signature line, how are we doing? Put a link to your Google reviews page in every email that goes out. That's another trick that you can use. Another one is there are apps that you can buy. I've seen people charging $100 or $200 a month that puts an app on every employee's phone. When the employee's in the home and here's a compliment, they can say, oh, would you like to repeat what you said where everybody can see it? And the sweet grandma will say, of course, dearie, I will do that for you. And so you click on this little app on your phone and you immediately have them log in, or you send them a text and they can go to your Google business page from the text and put a review there. It doesn't always work with the people that are not tech savvy, so you use it with the adult daughter. You can send an email to the adult daughter, or you can use this app if you are talking to that person in person. So that's a way to improve your reputation to get more clients. But at the same time, you can go to your happiest employees and ask them, give them a card with a QR code. Give them 100 cards with a QR code and have them hand them out to their friends. And they tell the friends, I love working here. Here, use the QR code and you can find out how to apply. This will, of course, accent what you're doing with the other apps that I told you about. The one that's local, the one that Bob Roth created in Phoenix, and the one that the brother and sisters created from Soneto. They're out of Florida. So yeah, you can use these. You can have these cards printed up. That's another trick that you can do to attract more people. Okay, I have given you some technology suggestions. I have given you some companies to contact. And I hope more than anything else, I have inspired you to stop hiring 50 people to get 8. There are better ways to do it. There are companies you can contact. It's up to you at this point to use some of the new technology companies that I have introduced you to. But one last thing, if you would like my help, I will be happy to talk to you. I am happy to take your email. We can set up a phone call. And the other thing is, if you would like to do more research, almost everything I've talked to you today is from articles that I have written in my newsletter. So if you're not already familiar with it, let me just give you a glance of what it looks like. Home care tech, the Rowan report has been around since 1999. We went electronic in 2015. I'm sorry, we went electronic in 2005. I am getting older, aren't I? It's been a while. But what that means is every article that we have ever written is available in the database. And there's a search function. So you can go in anytime you want and you can type in, let's say, the name of one of the companies that I gave you today in the search function. Click search now, and it will tell you every article I've ever read about them. You can type in Arizona, and you can find every article I've ever read about people that you might know. So it's easy to subscribe. The button is right here in the middle. Subscribe for free. It's totally advertiser supported. And you are welcome to check it out. If you want to do a little bit more research, scroll down to here to the red section, and any date you click on will recreate the issue from that date with those historic articles. I mail an email to all subscribers with every issue, and it has a little welcome letter and then links to the articles. So you can use this to recreate an article or a total issue, not just look at an individual article. Okay, so I told you to toot your own horn. I have tooted mine. Once again, you're invited to contact me, and I will pause for questions. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending an hour with me today.
Tim, thank you very much. This presentation was very helpful and very informative. I'm going to read a few things out of the chat. You asked when that other person mentioned that they started that program, but it was a different company. They responded, yes, tokens given in exchange for gift cards. And evidently it's Care Heroes.
Ah, okay.
And then someone else commented, to your first service you presented, I've been told to keep applications short, basically a contact form. How much does this add to the application process? Can it be done when they show up for the interview instead of at the application step?
I have heard both sides of that. People who hear about the 5-question Millimatch questionnaire have asked, will people do that? Will they quit? Will they walk away and stop applying at that point? The users, the early adopters, a couple of franchises across the country have reported that it makes the applicant feel like you're actually interested in them. They appreciate wanting you, they appreciate knowing you want to know more about them. They appreciate being known. And so it has not been an obstacle. It does not take a great deal of time. If you wait until the interview to have them do it, you'd have to have them do it on some nearby computer because it automatically goes to the algorithm and gives you a score within a few minutes. You can do it that way. There's no obstacle to doing it at the interview. Maybe even in the waiting room. If you got 5 people scheduled on the same day for an interview and they show up early, give it to them while they're in the waiting room. There's no rules about when you can use it. So you can try different ways and adapt.
Okay, and then feedback on pay advanced companies. This person has thought a couple of years ago that they might start going this route, but since decided not to. They think it may attract unreliable employees who financial issues get in the way of the job, especially if they are using this on an average of once a week. This is what you mentioned. Do you have any comments on that?
I haven't had any direct experience of that, but I would actually defer to people who are actually owners of agencies. But aren't you already mostly hiring people who are willing to take a low-paying job that's kind of on the difficult side to do the job? Aren't you already maybe hiring people who didn't like the regiment of working for Amazon or the standing on their feet all day working at McDonald's, whatever the reason might be? Aren't you, I don't know, unless you're paying $25 an hour, I'm assuming that you are hiring people who are oriented toward minimum wage jobs. So do you have the choice of hiring people that are not in a financial situation that's a little bit desperate? I don't know. All I can say is it doesn't cost anything. Why not try it?
Exactly. If any of you want to comment on this, raise your hand or put something in the chat and we can unmute you. Okay, I don't see anything more in the chat, Tim. So thank you very much. Again, this was great. The Osnaha Board of Directors want to thank you all for participating today. Our April session will be held Wednesday, April 19th. Our speakers will be Sherry Friend, who is the President and CEO of Oakwood Creative Care, and Janice Greeno, Senior Outreach Program Manager at Banner Sun Health Research Institute. They will be providing information on the dementia-friendly initiatives throughout Arizona, and also the innovative programming being launched at the Dementia Hub in Mesa. So please be sure to RSVP for those sessions. that are coming up, and watch for the advertising of this session coming out soon via MailChimp. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you all. Thank you, Lauren.